Welcome, everyone, to a very, very special bonus edition of Call to the Bullpen. That's right, we are hitting you with 2-for-1, second episode this week. I am Jared Silberkleit.
And I am your better co-host, Austin Keeney.
And basically, because we are doing jam packed, super long, super awesome NFL episodes with the football season going on, we wanted to reserve an entire bonus episode to preview the first round of the Major League Baseball playoffs. We're going to recap the wild card games, and then we're going to talk some division series action. I don't know if it's really fair for us to predict division series that have already started, but the Rockies and Brewers game's in extra innings right now, so it's not over yet.
Yeah, it is 2-2 currently. The Rockies actually just tied the game in the ninth inning. They were down 2-0. They put up a 2 spot there. So another extra inning playoff game. Thankfully, there's no ties in baseball, so we
Exactly.
will be able to see some good baseball games, some free baseball. We've already seen that out of one of the wild card games, which if anybody stayed up for that, you definitely lost a little bit of sleep and were a little tired for work the next day, but it was a very enjoyable game to watch.
Let's just hope that you weren't a Cubs fan, because I mean, is there anything worse than having to troop it out, watching a 5-hour baseball game in extra innings, only to see the home team lose? If you're a fan of them, I mean, man, like think about the people at Wrigley, how disappointed they must have been.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, I'll be honest. I was pulling for the Cubs. I really enjoy watching the Cubs play. Obviously, I'm rooting for the Yankees, but in that game specifically, I was pulling for the Cubs there. And it's it's sad to see. Obviously, one team has to lose, but like you said, in a extremely long baseball game, you really watched almost a game and a half of baseball. I think mathematically, actually, a game and a half of baseball. So it was tough, a tough loss, especially when there was opportunities to score for the Cubs.
Oh, plenty. Yeah,
And
they had a lot of opportunities with men on base in the late innings from the ninth inning on.
yeah, and it was also hard to watch some of the decisions. In the eighth inning, they pulled Rizzo, who got on for I can't even remember his name right now, but a pinch runner.
Gore, Terrence Gore.
Yeah,
So,
Terrence Gore,
so he
who
steal he steals a base.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, he, statistically, he has more stolen bases than he does at bats this season. So he, obviously it was the move to do because he did score. However, Javi Baez hit a double the next at bat, which potentially could have scored Rizzo anyways. I mean, hindsight's 2020. It
Yeah,
was the right move in a desperate situation to tie the game in the eighth inning. However, you then obviously you don't know you're going to play another 6 or 5 innings after that, so it's tough to say, oh, maybe we shouldn't have pulled him. But you lose Anthony Rizzo until the 13th when the game's over, and he's sitting on the bench watching, this guy get up that pinch ran for him, and I think he struck out his next 2 at bats that he got up, maybe 3 at bats. He didn't do anything productive other than score that run that probably would have been scored anyways had Javi done the same thing if Rizzo was on base. So it's tough to see that. And then to pull Cole Hamels, who's pitching phenomenally, as a long reliever, pseudo starter, if you will. He's pitching great, and they have to pinch hit for him, and the pinch hitter for him doesn't do anything, and then the next relief pitcher gives up the go ahead run. So it's tough to see those decisions fall back in the wrong direction.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Rizzo thing because we actually saw a similar situation with the Yankees A's wild card game where they they subbed in Hechavarria for Andujar for his defense at a point where the game was 2-0. And it's like you take one aspect of the game where it makes sense to make the move, but then when you're taking a bat like that out of the lineup, that is a huge risk in a postseason game. Because here, the move they made with Rizzo, it was obviously, you could sense the desperation because he got on with 2 outs. He got a single with 2 outs. If it was a double, then maybe he stays in. And
Yeah.
well, actually, even in that instance, they still might have subbed for him because they're thinking, what is the minimum? What's the minimum scenario we're looking at here? What if it's just a single and then the guy after Baez gets out?
Yeah.
And so in that instance, you want somebody who can score from second.
Yeah. No doubt about that at all. I mean,
Yeah,
I couldn't
but
agree more. It's
you
just,
are taking the three hitter out. So
yeah. And Anthony Rizzo, to watch him, with a hoodie on in the dugout for the next 5 innings is just,
it's tough.
it's tough. It's a bat like that, to lose a bat like that in a game that's that close, especially when his spot came up in big opportunities and they weren't they weren't nothing was done with them. There was bad at bats in his place, so it's tough.
It would be like, yeah, it would be like the Yankees. Almost. It's probably a bit of a stretch, but it would be like them pinch running for a guy like Stanton. Yeah, but he's not the best base runner in that situation. But just given the way that the game could go from there on out, I mean, it really is tough though because it was eighth inning, but they were definitely missing him. I think in the later, and especially when you think about all the men left on base, how might his at bats have impacted those scenarios? We'll never know. The Cubs, though, I mean, coming in to September with the most experience of all the contenders and one of the more talented rosters. I mean, getting Cole Hamels really shored up their pitching rotation issues, and
Yeah, and getting Daniel Murphy. I mean,
Murphy,
honestly,
yeah,
honestly, I mean, I think having the acquisitions that they got at the they put them to potentially, I think, be the favorite to really go very, very far in these playoffs, if not win them all. I mean, they had the roster, they had the pitching, they had the bullpen depth. I mean, look,
they were
that
just
Cole
getting
Hamels could
banged
have
up down the
pitched.
stretch.
Yeah, Cole Hamels could have pitched a 6 inning, a 6 inning extra inning game, and he was pitching great. I mean, he might have given up a hit or two in four, what was it, 4 innings of pitching? I believe he threw 3 innings potentially. So it's tough to see a team like that get knocked out. But I mean, unfortunately, when you lose two at home, to go, or one at home to go into that situation, and then the second one at home to obviously be kicked out of the playoffs in the wild card, it's a tough loss for them. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, wow, what a momentum shift. I mean, the Cubs. So because of the tiebreaker situation, I told you this over the phone. This means that if they had won any of the 69 games that they lost this season, any one of them, it could have been at any point during the regular season. We could have gone back to a series against the Pirates or the Reds. If
Yeah, somebody completely irrelevant that they should have won that they didn't.
Yeah.
But that's how important. Everyone says, "Oh, it's early. We're only halfway through the season." Well, if you won two more games in the first half of the season, you were in the playoffs and you weren't in a single elimination game.
All they needed was one more win.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying.
Exactly. Either way.
Facetiously for all the other teams in the league. When the Red Sox or the Yankees, obviously the Red Sox, they were gonna win it regardless because of their record. But the Yankees, had it been a little closer and they won one or two more games, they could have potentially not been in this situation had the Red Sox record not been what it was. So I'm speaking for the rest of the teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about the Yankees. I think now that we are in the postseason, they got past the wild card game. I think it sheds a new light on this season because we complained over the summer a lot about how mediocre this team was playing in July and August. But now that you look back on it, that they were undermanned for most of the season. Pretty much, they didn't have their fully healthy lineup outside of May when they were crushing everyone, and the last couple of weeks when everyone's finally gotten healthy again, and they ended the season winning, I believe, 9 of their last 13. They entered the playoffs with momentum, and then they took care of business against the A's. So now it's all of a sudden you look back on it like this team won 100 games, and they were considered to be underperforming, undermanned, dealing with injuries, having Greg Bird and Gary Sanchez, who were both expected to be major players for this team. Both of them had disastrous seasons.
Oh, absolutely. Greg Bird, honestly, I wish they had gotten rid of him for nothing. I mean, he was in the talks to get, a pitcher at the deadline, and I would have just given him away for a Rosenbag. I mean, he just didn't do anything.
But hey, you know what? If he wasn't that bad, it wouldn't have led the Yankees to Luke Voigt. He wouldn't have gotten those opportunities at the time that he got them. And I don't know how sustainable this is. I don't know how great of a career he's going to have.
I mean, I sure hope it goes at least through the playoffs.
But right now, this guy is hot.
Oh, yeah.
He has all the momentum.
He is the unsung hero of this playoff run so far.
I think they're starting to sing his praises. I mean, people are really starting to take notice. This guy is absolutely destroying the ball. He almost had a 3-run home run. He missed it by inches.
He missed it by 6 inches. Whether it was going to be a catch, a home run, or a fan interference, I mean, in 3 inches up, left, or down. It was one of the three,
Yeah,
and it ended up being a triple, an RBI triple.
it's
I thought he
eruption.
had a double, and then he scores on a fly ball, and he scored from second. I really thought he had a double on it, and he legged out a triple, which is pretty cool to see.
And then he had the instant replay review, and it was so funky because due to the angles, it looked like the glove might have been on him, but the glove
Yeah.
was kind of lined up with his jersey, but you were looking for the bend, and there wasn't the indisputable evidence. But of course, he that had to be the way that he had to cap it by scoring on that sac fly. So a great postseason debut for him. Judge set the tone right away by hitting a home run all the way to Boston to let him know we're coming.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It was a fun game to watch for Yankee fans, for us especially.
They really did make you
And
sweat. I mean, the A's.
no, I mean the Cubs Rockies game. Like I said, we lost sleep over it, and I think I lost a couple years of my life trying to watch the end of that game. So it was, the 2-0 situations where the A's had a couple. I think they maybe had one or two separate times that they had the bases loaded with less than two outs. There might have been one of them that
I'm not sure they
had
ever
two
got.
outs.
I'm not sure they got him loaded, but there was that.
Oh, they did. They did. They had them loaded the one inning that Pansis came in because Severino let two guys get on, and I think they got the bases loaded that inning. I mean, I may be wrong,
They
but either
were.
way, there was definitely situations that there were more heartbeats per minute in those situations than others in the game. So it was scary, in a 2-0 game to have two guys on or three guys on with the go ahead run at the plate. But they got out of it. They had great pitching. Everybody pitched very well that game. Stanton, his first postseason at bat or his first postseason game, hits a absolute moonshot that I don't know if you saw
Into
Aroldis
the second.
Chapman's reaction to it, but
Yeah.
I mean it was everybody's reaction, and it was a big wow. I mean it was a shot. So, good to see him getting the playoff jitters out of the way and getting his first one out, and hopefully any more come from him.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I think with Severino, he answered the call. He didn't permit a hit through 4 innings. His command was a little off, although I think that he was getting squeezed a little bit by the plate umpire. Nonetheless, I think that him being so young, he's got to learn better, command of his pitch count. That's something that he's kind of struggled with throughout the season, going 5 innings ish a lot of the time. And if you're going to be an ace, you got to learn to go longer. But I mean, with Yankees bullpen depth, especially in a game like this, where at the first sight of trouble, it's do or die. So again, first sight of the trouble, he was going to get yanked. That's just the way it was going to be. But still, the Yankees had the right intention going in with an ace starter. And granted, with the A's, Sean Manaea was on the DL, but this was a humongous mistake to put this game entirely in the hands of the bullpen when you had Trevor Cahill, you had Mike Fiers on your roster, both of whom very capable starters. You can't tell me that it was more of a risk to start one of them, or even Edwin Jackson, who has experience as a veteran. It was more. You can't tell me it was more of a risk to start them than to put this game entirely in the hands of your bullpen. Bunch of middle relievers and setup guys coming
I
in
mean,
to.
was that a we're gonna risk it so that when we win, we'll have the starting rotation? You can't guarantee a win in that situation. I
No,
mean, this
no. The idea
you're
was.
not playing the Baltimore Orioles in a single game elimination. The Yankees won a lot of games this year by a lot of runs. I mean, this wasn't a joke of a team that they were playing against. There's no guarantee even that you're going to lose or win even against a team like Baltimore or a team that doesn't have a lot of wins. But the fact that you're going to go up against the Yankees and almost try to guarantee the fact that you're going to win, so you're going to save your starting rotation. Well, guess what your starting rotation is doing now? They're in Florida playing golf. So it wasn't the best option, clearly, to start with your bullpen in a single elimination game.
Well,
All
yeah.
right, maybe game 3 of the ALDS when you're up 2 games, fine. Throw somebody in there. You can potentially risk losing one game because you still have the opportunity to win one of the next two. But the fact that you're gonna start a bullpen guy in a single elimination game, I don't know. I mean, to me that makes no sense. And like you said, not when you have capable starting pitchers.
Yeah, and I mean the whole idea that you've got these guys who are used to coming in to be called upon maybe to pitch 1 inning at a time. They don't have, obviously, relievers aren't built up to have the same stamina and pitch count management as starters. And then coming in here asking them to come into Yankee Stadium with this smoldering hot crowd it's created such havoc for visitors. So the A's are now the fourth consecutive postseason opponent to come up empty-handed against the Yankees, because the Twins last year, the Indians, the World Series champion Astros, and now the Oakland A's had their all of these teams. None of them won a game at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees' last four postseason opponents. So that's what the Red Sox are walking into here in this division series, and this place is turning into it's becoming an absolute nightmare for visiting teams, and the young players in the Yankees, they're really feeding off the energy.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll jump right into the ALDS with the
Yeah,
Red Sox. So we'll go from the wild card to there.
how about
Um,
that?
with the Red Sox coming into Yankee Stadium, I mean, listen, they're no joke of a team either. I mean, obviously they had the best record in baseball. They're a hot team. They have the bodies. They have the starting rotation. However, when you look at some of their guys on paper, is this almost a win or bust kind of situation coming in with the best record in baseball? Do they have the most pressure from the regular season? Because, I mean, if they come in and they come up empty handed against the Yankees, what does that look like? I mean, does that look good for the Yankees, or does that look absolutely atrocious for the Red Sox, showing that they beat everybody? I mean, everybody all season long. They smoked them. They just could not lose baseball games. And now they're going to come in to a playoff situation where they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders. And if you look at their starting pitchers, David Price has 9 postseason starts. And in the postseason, he's got a 5.74 ERA. Sale, 1 postseason start, and he's got an ERA over 12. I mean, I've played a lot of baseball, and I can tell you firsthand, pitching wins games, pitching wins playoffs, pitching wins tournaments, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to play in. It's you can score 15 runs by hitting 15 home runs, but if your pitching walks everybody under the park or in the park and gives up a million runs, you're still going to lose the game. I mean, you have to have good pitchers in the playoffs, and they were great in the regular season, but will they hold it up in the playoffs?
Well, first of all, David Price he had a tougher start to the season, but he turned around in the second half. But nonetheless, he's always had a very, very bad track record against the Yankees, especially at Yankee Stadium. Now, granted, he is lined up to pitch Game 2, which means that there's no chance of him pitching 3 or 4. So they get that out of the way. And Porcello's a guy, I think, who's mainly benefited from run support. He's a guy who has proven the ability to win games, but he's not a shutdown dominant starter. He's a guy that's going to give up some hits and have to work his way out of trouble. He can be an innings eater, but he is not a dominant strikeout guy. Now, Chris Sale, on top of his game, is absolutely an ace pitcher, one of the best in all baseball. But with this elbow injury, his last start, he's clocked in at his fastball clocked in at like 93, I think. So
I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because I did pull this stat a little earlier. Before the last start before he got injured, his average fastball in that game was 98 miles an hour. The last start that he had after this so-called elbow injury, his average is 90 miles an hour. So you're talking about an 8-mile-an-hour difference between pre-injury and current post-injury. I mean, 98 is a hard pitch to hit. 90 is an average mediocre pitcher in the major leagues. That's nothing to boast about, So is his stuff really going to be on? Is he going to have to rely on a lot more off-speed pitches to get these guys out? Because, I mean, you throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to Aaron Judge or Stanton, and you're not going to see it again. Maybe 100, yeah, you could get it by him. You could sneak that by. 90 miles an hour, you float that over the plate, and that's a changeup to those guys, So it's tough with that injury. And again, just one more stat to throw out there based off of what I was saying before about Price and Sale. All of the Red Sox starters, they all combined have 19 postseason starts. Guess how many wins they have in those 19 postseason starts?
I believe a 0 as a starter.
That is a 0 as a starter. You're correct. So in 19 postseason starts, the Red Sox starting rotation right now has 0 wins.
Yeah, and
it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I'm not saying
there really is.
The Red Sox, listen, all of their pitchers are great. Price is a phenomenal pitcher. Sale is a phenomenal pitcher. They have good bodies, they have good stats, but that's a lot of pressure coming in to Yankee Stadium or even Fenway, walking in and saying, you know what, I've never won a postseason game, and now I'm playing the Yankees, and they are healthy. They're healthy. They got their lineup back.
They are.
that's tough. And they're human beings. These guys aren't robots out there. They can make mistakes. Nerves get in the way of these games.
Yeah, and I do think that they have the most pressure on them because I think, again, like you kind of take the glass half full approach with the Yankees. Now that they've gotten to where they need to be, because the whole thing was throughout the season, oh no, you're falling behind the Red Sox. You're going to have to play in the wild card game. How are you going to deal with a one-game wild card? Well, guess what? They won that game. Now they're in the same exact situation as the Red Sox. Yeah, they get one less home game in this series, but they're right where everybody else is right now. It's a level playing field. So now that narrative is out the window. Now it's a Yankees team, I think, that has more momentum. And I'm going to go as far to say, if they were at full strength throughout this season, again, still, grinding at 100 wins with all the adversity, I think that, I'm not going to say they would have won the division, but it could have been a tighter race than they could have finished less than 8 games behind. And I think the Red Sox do have the pressure. Granted, I think that every team in the American League playoffs is playing with a lot of pressure this season because the Yankees were 1 game away last year. The Red Sox had one of the best regular seasons in Major League history, the best regular season in Red Sox history. The Astros are trying to repeat. The Indians have been a perennial contender and aren't getting it done. So I think everybody is playing with pressure. That being said, keeping it to this Yankees-Red Sox game series, I think the pressure's really on Boston to win to win both of these first 2 games. I think if the Yankees win either game 1 or game 2, they're in phenomenal shape because, again, they haven't lost a home playoff game in 4 years. Or is it 3 years? I apologize. Whenever that 2015 wild card game against Houston, that was the last one. That's 4 straight opponents that they haven't
Yeah,
lost to.
and Yankee Stadium's not an easy stadium to come in and play in.
No, it
I
is.
don't care who you are.
Yeah,
Granted, I personally, just from attending games, I wish this was the old stadium because the old stadium was 1,000 times louder than the new stadium with how open it is, and it used to get
it's
wild.
getting there. It's getting there.
Which is crazy. I mean, I wish I could get to one of these games, and I really hope I can. But it's I've seen playoff games in the old stadium and in the new stadium. We were at one together, so it's kind of crazy that I still think the old stadium was louder. But the fact that this place is as loud as it is, where players can't hear other players talking, they can't hear players calling fly balls. I mean, if it's that loud in there, that's tough to go into. Fenway's a great stadium, and I know that they have the home field advantage, but Yankee Stadium is home field advantage in itself. I don't care what game of the series you're in. In a playoff game, that place gets rocking.
It is, and let's be clear here. I know we're really hyping up the Yankees big time here. I do feel like they have more momentum heading into this series. The Red Sox, their top half of the order, their top half of the lineup, best in baseball bar none. Mookie Betts and JD Martinez were unquestionably the 2 best hitters in the American League this entire season. They're going to be 1 and 2 for AL MVP, no matter which one wins. That's the way it's going to go down. Whoever wins this series, it is going to be won with offense because the Yankees starters, apart from J.A. Happ, have not demonstrated a ton of consistency. They haven't demonstrated the ability to go deep into games. I do think that the Yankees bullpen is definitely much better than the Red Sox. I think top to bottom, although the Red Sox have Kimbrel, of course, but the Yankees have proven they can hit Kimbrel. Likewise, the Red Sox have proven they can hit Chapman. So the pitching staffs, as far as the matchups go, are kind of you're concerned no matter which side of the fence you're on. I think that Happ has demonstrated a lot of success against the Red Sox, so that's probably the most confident you could be as far as a potential pitching matchup goes. So what I think it's going to come down to, again, is the home field situation. I do think the Yankees are in the driver's seat if they happen to split one of these games, these first 2 games at Fenway, because last season they dropped the first 2 in Cleveland and then used that Yankee Stadium momentum to come back from 2-0 to win 3 in a row. So not saying they could necessarily do that again, but if they win one of those first 2 Fenway games, they're in great shape.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And especially coming back to Yankee Stadium for the later games in the series, obviously that always helps. So I think we touched base on that quite a lot, and obviously I think both of our predictions in that series are going to go Yankees just out of principle here. I don't think either of us are going to say the Red Sox are going to win that one.
Yep,
Let's
I agree.
let's
But I mean, it's going to be a fight, though. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. I
it's
mean,
going
it's
to
going
be.
to be good baseball to watch. It's good baseball regardless of the teams, but the fact that it's the first time since, if I'm correct, 2004 that the Red
2004.
Sox and the Yankees are meeting in the playoffs.
And due
Uh,
to the new rules, it's the first time ever in the division series because it used to be before this new wild card format that two teams in the same division couldn't play each other in the first round. But now the newer rules have changed that. This is the fourth postseason meeting overall for the Yankees and Red Sox. The Yankees won the ALCS in 1999, 4 games to 1. They won in 2003. Aaron Boone, walk-off home run in Game 7. Everybody remembers that. And then the Red Sox coming back down from 3-0 in 2004 to break the curse. So 14 years in the making, everybody.
yeah, definitely. And Aaron Boone, one of those bees that the Red Sox don't like. They're
Mm,
they're a fan of most of them, but there's three in particular, and Aaron Boone's definitely one of them. So will the curse of Aaron Boone roll over Boston again? We'll have to see.
exactly.
Um, but let's just as a quick update, we'll continue with the AL, but just because it happened, the Brewers took game 1 of their series with the Rockies in the 10th inning. Um, Moustakis singled to right center, and Yelich scored to win the game on a walk-off in the bottom of the 10th there. So just as a heads up,
Huge
guys.
win for Milwaukee. Yeah. I mean, Yelich, he homered in the early in this game, second inning, put him
Yeah,
third inning
two-run home
rather,
run, I believe.
third inning rather. Yeah, likely NL MVP to put him ahead. So now the Brewers get a
Oh, absolutely.
big walk off win. What better way to start a series, right?
Definitely, definitely. So let's move on. We'll continue with the American League here. We're going to talk about the Cleveland Indians and Houston Astros. My take, again, it stays on that same pressure situation, and I don't want to use the same breakdown for another team, but you have to think that with the Astros being a World Series winner last year, is there a pressure on them also to repeat? Is the World Series hangover almost too heavy? I mean, I know they have a lot of great guys. They have one of the best lineups and one of the best rotations, and especially bullpens with Osuna. I mean, and Garrett Cole with personally, I think one of the biggest additions in the offseason is Garrett Cole. So it's almost hard to go against them. But the fact that they're favorites on paper and they have that World Series hangover going on, is there too much conflicting there for them to pull it off again?
Well, I will answer that with this: the Astros this year are better than they were last year. They they
That's very
return
true. I just said Garrett Cole, one of the
they
biggest
return
additions in
every
the offseason. So
they returned everybody. They added Garrett Cole to this rotation. Last year, we were talking about how good this rotation was with Keuchel, Verlander, Morton, McCullers. Now they have Garrett Cole in there, who 276 strikeouts, and it was good for second place on this team because of Justin Verlander. I mean, you've got two workhorse. You got three. You had three guys on this team that threw 200 innings this year. And granted, Keuchel, I think is not as dominant as people thought he was a few years ago. But now, I mean, nonetheless, a guy like that is your three starter. You'll have that. And Morton, built on last year, 200 Ks this season. Cole and Verlander are absolute stud aces. You win with pitching in the postseason. This is unquestionably the best starting rotation in the entire playoffs. And yeah, they're going to be a nightmare for everybody that they face. And the lineup, they won 103 games this year, and that was with Altuve, Correa, and George Springer all getting hurt at one point. So we go back.
yeah, and multiple times there's a
Yeah.
few of them that went out on multiple occasions. So the fact
Yeah.
that they lost, excuse me, some of their key guys. I mean, yeah, the Yankees lost Sanchez, but they still had a guy to replace him that if Sanchez wasn't playing that well, so it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, this you're talking about Jose Altuve. You're talking about George Springer. Those are the key guys in your lineup.
Altuve is one of the best players in baseball, and
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
and
Which
Springer's been a
makes no
stud for
sense
them.
because he's 5 foot nothing and 107 pounds. I mean, the fact that
And he uses such a. It looks like the bat's too big for him. He looks like a kid carrying his
he
dad's
looks,
bat.
if anybody remembers the old backyard baseball, he looks like Pablo Sanchez. He's tiny and he uses this massive bat and he hits
uh,
the hell out of the ball. I mean,
yeah,
he absolutely smashes the
he
ball. So
smokes it. Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's crazy. It's crazy to watch, and it's enjoyable to watch somebody like that can play to this caliber. Um, but the fact that they have a lineup that deep that, like you said, could finish off with 103 wins and still have injuries,
with guys
and
missing time, yeah.
it's absolutely wild. And I mean, I
And then
think no doubt.
you had the breakout of Alex Bregman as well, and then you still got Gurriel returning. This is going to be a dangerous team once again, and now they know what it takes to get it done. They just did it last year, so they're coming in here with confidence, I'd expect, and again, just pitching wins, man, pitching wins, and they have the pitching and they have the hitting.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And game one's going to be rather exciting with Verlander and Kluber going. So
They are going to need
that's
so the Indians are going to need everything they can get out of Kluber because Trevor Bauer was having an unbelievable season, but that injury is really tough because they really are a team that needed everything they could get out of their starters because their bullpen has cost them so many games this year. And
yeah.
Bauer's going to be available to work out of the bullpen. It appears that he may be slotted back in for. They're saying game 3 or 4 of the division series, but he's coming off the injury, so you're worrying about Russ there. But they're gonna. I mean, if he delivers, then the Indians could maybe pull off the upset, but they're going to need it.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and especially Cleveland has a lineup also. I mean, yeah, I know we're talking about Houston and how deep their lineup and their rotation is, but Cleveland's no joke either. I mean, they have some big bats. They have Lindor,
Huge
who's
bats.
a 3-time All Star. I mean, that's no joke. Jose Ramirez is also another great bat with 39 home runs and 106
Well,
RBIs this
Ramirez
season.
also he did end the season on a gigantic slump. He was on pace for like nearly 50 home runs for most of the season, and then his batting average plummeted. And he was pretty cold throughout September. It was kind of the Stanton thing. So they're going to need him to pick it up. But nonetheless, he was one of the premier power hitters in all of baseball throughout most of the season.
Yeah, and on top of that, he still had 34 stolen bases this year. So the fact that he had almost 40 home runs and 34 stolen bases, I mean, he helps on both sides. It's not like Stanton where
Well, Stanton's also 7 feet tall.
well, yes, but it's not like Stanton where he gets on first and you want to pinch run for him because he's not fast enough to score, or like last night, Rizzo, not knocking Rizzo in his speed, but you put in a fast guy so he can score. Jose Ramirez, you don't need to do that. He can get on second with a double and score on a short single or a base hit or something like that. You don't need to worry about that. So that's also a weapon to have. And on top of it, another guy in the 30 home run threshold for the Indians, Edwin Encarnacion. I mean, he had another 32 home runs this year and 107 RBIs. I mean, there's depth in that lineup that I don't think a lot of people realize the magnitude that they can actually play at.
And not to mention they added Donaldson.
And they added Donaldson, which I mean, he isn't having the best season
Well, he
of
was
his
hurt most of
career.
he was hurt most of the year, but
Correct, but he's still a phenomenal player defensively and offensively. He's a great player to add. I mean, that's you're not talking about a pointless addition that's going to be a guy on your bench to pinch hit once in a while.
No. He was
That's a bona fide stud.
3 years removed from an MVP campaign. So if he can produce, that they got a lot of depth there, but unfortunately Cleveland's bullpen has just been such a problem all year. So although it should be a fun series I mean, it could be a fun series, with two great lineups going head to head. Like I said, I think that Cleveland is I don't know if anybody's expecting them to win the American League. I think that they're probably the least likely of the four to make it to the World Series. But nonetheless, this is a team where you feel like the window could rapidly be closing because why did they make the World Series a couple of years ago? It was because of the bullpen, Andrew Miller. And the way that Francona manages pitchers have kind of ushered in this new era of like, the bullpen games. But now that that's no longer an asset, they're gonna have to win in totally different ways. And I think that after blowing the 3-1 lead against the Cubs, after blowing the 2-0 lead against the Yankees, they have a reputation as chokers at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And like you said, I don't think they're the favorite on paper. I mean, I think there's a potential, but I don't see them getting through the Astros at all. So
I'm gonna predict Astros. Yeah, Astros in 4. I want to say. I mean, if their pitching really gets rolling, could be a sweep. Again, I know Cleveland's dangerous, but like again, it's really just a case of if the Astros can edge it out, they could edge it out 3 times in a row. So I'm not going to go and say sweep. I'm going to say 4 games. But yeah, Houston.
Yeah, I'll take 4 games. I think there's a potential for a 3-game sweep. But I do think the Indians have enough in them to not get completely smoked by the Astros.
Much like the Red Sox did last year.
Yeah. However, if the Astros rotation does what they're good at and what they can do, there's no doubt in my mind that this thing can end in 3, and the Astros could have a couple days off or rest.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess if all goes according to plan, we're gonna have a Yankees Astros ALCS rematch. So we'll see how that if that happens. I don't think that hasn't happened. ALCS rematch probably since I want to say Yankees Red Sox went back to back. So. We'll see how that pans out.
But no doubt about that.
Moving over to the National League, we've got it got underway tonight. We talked about it earlier. Brewers walked off against the Rockies, so they are already ahead 1-0 in this series. I think both of us were feeling Milwaukee in this series anyway, but we got to talk about the Rockies really kind of surprising everybody by arguably entering with some of the most. I mean, them and the Brewers, they're the 2 hottest teams in the National League heading into the playoffs. I think they really surprised everybody when they not only were able to come in and take one of those wild card spots, but then upset the Cubs in Wrigley in extra innings to claim that wild card. And now you look, I mean, between the Brewers and the Rockies, you have the 2 best, I think, lineups as far as average and power goes in the NL playoffs. But both starting rotations are a little bit questionable.
Yeah, definitely a little bit questionable, but the lineups definitely have some depth. I mean, Colorado, with Nolan Arenado, I mean, he
deserves it, man. I'm so happy he's finally getting the ability to really like play for a championship. He's been one of the best players in baseball the last few seasons, and he thought, nobody pays attention to his stats because he plays in Colorado, and the Rockies have been mediocre, but finally, like, they broke through. He's going to get a series.
Yeah, and it's awesome to see a player that really plays the right way and plays well with the stats that he has to get an opportunity. But even joining him in that discussion, maybe Trevor Story, another great player. Another great player who's really putting up the numbers and giving them the potential to win this. They do have some mediocre pitching, like we said. But the fact that they have a deep lineup that can really play the game and play it well, I don't see why they can't pull this one off. It wouldn't surprise me if they do. So
Milwaukee's got the bullpen, though.
Yeah, they do. They do. And they got Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain. I mean, they got some big names on there, too. It's again, and Jesus Aguilar. Some numbers that are hard to argue against. It's going to be a good series of 2 very good teams. I mean, there's weaknesses on both with pitching, but with the lineup, they definitely will play very well together.
I mean, the Brewers lack the rotation depth, but they've definitely got the bullpen depth to offset that. And the fact that they're not facing a team with any shutdown starters, really, although the Rockies' pitching has been pretty good the last few days. Especially being able to outlast deep into these games and not get killed as far as letting up a lot of runs to the other team. They really don't have any starters that scare you. And the Brewers, you could say the same. I mean, Julius Chassin is their de facto ace, and then Gio Gonzalez is right behind him. His best years seem to be behind him. But they've got a deep rotation with Jeffries and Soria and Hader. So they can definitely hold it down late and throw in Miley as well. Well, as far as like starters go, so they have secured the top seed in the NL playoffs. They have the best lineup. I think most would say, especially with it's just a case of the acquisitions at the trade deadline and in the offseason really paying off with Kane, Yelich, Aguilar returning, Travis Shaw returning. Then they added Mustakas and Scope. Still got Ryan Braun in there. So there's a lot of depth. They can hurt you in a lot of ways. So they, they're a scary team. Colorado's scary too. I could see if whoever. I'm really feeling like whoever wins this series. I don't know. See, I don't even know if I want to say that though. The NL is so wide open, but both these teams are definitely exciting. I'm gonna go with the Brewers.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the Brewers too. I mean, I think I had mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the Cubs. I really was pulling for the Cubs to win it. I think they're a little bit more exciting of a team than the Rockies. I just don't. I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Rockies have the depth to pull it off, which is also why I wanted to see the Cubs win.
Well, they have the lineup depth, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, I with the bullpen depth that the Cubs had and all of that, I mean, I feel like it would have been a little bit better of a series between the Cubs and the Brewers. But however, we are here, so I'm going to go with the Brewers. Also, I just don't think the Rockies really have that depth on all sides of the spectrum to pull it off. I mean, they have their 3-4 guys in the lineup that are great. And the rest of the lineup's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't see the starting rotation and the bullpen being able to handle, let alone one series, two series, and three series of playoffs,
Well, yeah, I mean, experience is a non-factor here because you got two teams that are very new to postseason play. But yeah, I mean, I think the Brewers, I think the bullpen depth is going to make the difference, and you saw it today. They were able to, win a game entirely on their bullpen and outlast the Rockies in extra innings. So if they're able to put Colorado in an 0-2 hole starting tomorrow, that's going to be very tough to come back from. So I like the Brewers to go to the NLCS. I really like that you have a lot of new blood in the NL playoffs. So that makes it, I think that makes playoffs very accessible, especially for the MLB fan whose team got out of it and they just want to see fresh matchups. You got a lot here in the National League. So both going with the Brewers here. Then we got the Dodgers versus the Braves, two of the more successful National League franchises of the last, 20 to 30 years, right?
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that. I mean, both
the baby
teams,
Braves, though. The baby Braves, they're just they've arrived.
They're a young team. They're a very young team. This isn't an old team. They don't have an old roster. Their median age is probably one of the lowest in the MLB.
Oh yeah.
So they don't have the experience personally, but they definitely have the experience as a organization. Obviously, we've seen them play in the playoffs multiple times over the last God knows how many years.
Totally different personnel.
Correct, obviously, but that being said, just as an update, we are in the top of the third of the first game of the NLDS of that series. It is 4-0 Dodgers. They put up 1 in the first and 3 in the second.
For the record, we were both going to pick the Dodgers. Well, I was going to pick the Dodgers before they went up this big. Just wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I also was. It's hard to argue with a team that has the ability to play the way that they do, the pitching staff that they have, the lineup depth that they have. The addition of Manny Machado is a massive addition. He can play, short and third base when you need him to. He can hit the home runs when you need him to. He has the ability to play and play very well. So the fact that they have the depth, I mean, it's almost like an Astros. They have such a deep lineup and deep rotation and deep bullpen that it's hard to argue with a team like that. I don't want to say they bought their way there, because that wouldn't necessarily be fair. However, they definitely have put themselves in a place to win it.
Here's the thing.
And also guys that stepped up in situations that you didn't really expect him to. I mean, obviously Clayton Kershaw is Clayton Kershaw. He's going to pitch well, but a guy like Walker Buehler, I mean, who is Walker Buehler? The only Buehler that I know is Ferris Bueller, and he ain't no MLB pitcher. So, the fact that this guy shows up if Clayton Kershaw wasn't there, he on paper could be the ace of this team.
And it's his rookie. It's his rookie season. He was, he had a little cameo last year, but this year, his rookie year in the National League, coming in, and he's pitched phenomenally. He's been fantastic. And Kershaw missed a little bit of time. Bueller, they didn't have him through 30 starts or anything like that, but nonetheless, he's asserted himself as he's been right up there with Kershaw as the best that this pitching staff has had to offer. And it's tough to tell how a rookie is going to fare in the postseason, but I mean, if they get some production out of him, that's going to give them a huge edge because, like I said, this is a National League, especially because if the Dodgers advance, they're playing either the Brewers or the Rockies, who don't have that kind of rotation depth. So if they have that, that's going to give them a huge edge.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And having that depth is obviously massive when it comes to the playoffs. We talked about this earlier, where pitching wins playoffs, pitching wins games in general. I mean, if you don't have good pitchers, you're not going to win. It's as simple as that.
And to your point about
Braves, go ahead. Sorry,
I was going to say, to your point about Machado, they've kind of had to supplant for the fact that they haven't been getting the kind of production out of some of their guys that were absolutely killing it last year. I mean, Bellinger has dropped off. Puig has dropped off. Justin Turner missed a little bit of time. So they kind of had to make up for that. I mean, luckily they did have the emergence of Max Muncy, who's not going to give you a great average, but he at times has been absolutely murdering the ball. So with Muncy's emergence and adding Machado, they've definitely, they got a dangerous lineup, which on paper statistically didn't produce at the level they were capable of this whole season. But if they get right and they have the experience, they're the one team coming into this postseason for the National League with experience. If they get the momentum, they could be a really, really tough out.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and I'm glad you brought up Muncy. He is actually part of the reason that they're up 4-1. Yeah, he had a 3-run home run, and Jock Peterson in the first inning, I believe, hit a solo shot. So
he's got pop, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're going to have production like that from those guys, it's going to be really tough for the Braves to win this. I mean, the Braves really have to bring their A game in this series, and I just don't see them doing it. I just don't think they have the depth to deal with a team like this that is getting production out of guys that you don't expect.
I think the Braves, they've been a good hitting team. I mean, Albies started off red hot and he kind of fizzled out. Again, young team, inexperienced, don't want to come down on them too hard, but I just feel this feels like it's going to be a learning experience for them more than anything. Although they've got guys that can hurt you in that lineup, but I just, I mean, Freeman and Markakis are veteran hitters that have proven to be good year in, year out. Markakis has kind of had a resurgence this year, just like, mashing doubles and hitting for an average, but and Acuna and Albies, like we said, have had impressive campaigns. But yeah, I just think the experience is going to catch up to the lack of experience is going to catch up to them. I like the Dodgers to advance, but like I said, I think the fact that they've looked very vulnerable this year, I think that across the board, this National League playoffs, they feel like they are anybody's game. So I think that makes it very exciting. And you've got a lot of teams that are not carrying a lot of expectations, except for the Dodgers.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, the only thing that scares me about the Dodgers is Kershaw, and I think that if he doesn't start on a good note,
correct,
it's really going to put a damper on that team because he is the guy to look to. He is the ace. He is he's the guy to go to. He's the go-to guy, and if he doesn't start with a win, or at least a very good pitching outing, it's going to put a damper on that lineup, on that rotation, on that team in general, and they really could fall off. He's a big decision maker on that team, and if his first start is not good, it could not fare well for the Dodgers.
No question about that. But he surprisingly did not start game one, so they're playing the long game with him, and yeah, they're going to need him to get right because when he's on, he's the best pitcher in baseball. So
absolutely,
we'll see how it fares. So we both agreed on everything, and if this pans out,
I mean it's tough because I don't want to say some of them are obvious, but I can't.
I don't think any of them are
series
obvious
on paper. It's just hard to say that. The Braves are definitely going to beat the Dodgers, or the Dodgers are definitely going to beat the Braves. I mean, none of them are completely obvious, but
I'm going to go out and say that the only series where I would legitimately be surprised at the result is if the Indians beat the Astros, just due to the again,
Just the
everything that
caliber of the Astros team.
that Houston brings to the table, I think that I would be very surprised if they got eliminated in the first round. But every other, and granted, Cleveland is good, but every other series, I think, very unpredictable. It's kind of more like who you feeling. But
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me really to see any of these teams beat the other.
correct. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think we did agree on all of them. I think everybody knew we were going to agree on the Yankees and the Red Sox just out of principle.
I'm going to
But
Game
yeah, I
3,
mean,
everybody. So I cannot pick against my team. Impossible.
yeah, I'm pretty jealous about that. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be a great playoff series for these 8 teams. It's going to be exciting, and by Monday, when we record again, we will touch base on what the situation is for these series.
We will
Tomorrow
not be recording on Monday because I will be at the Yankees game, everybody. We're going to be coming back a day late next week, or a day early. Haven't figured it out quite yet. Probably a day late, but we're going to figure it out. But yeah, we will definitely recap all this next week when we do record.
Well, that's fair. So if we when we record on Tuesday, then
Boom.
we will be touching base on at least Game 3 or up to Game 3 of the ALDS and NLDS. So it'll
NLDS
be a good.
NLDS will be past Game 4 by that point, so that might be over with.
Yeah, correct. So we might have some recap on a full series there, and who knows? I mean, maybe the ALDS could be because they both start Friday also. So we'll see what goes on there. You have our predictions. Let us know what you think of our predictions and what you think is going to happen. Give us some feedback on the NLDS and the ALDS and going forward. If you have certain winners of the DS, let us know what you think of the CS and the World Series. Check us as always. Check us out on Facebook. Call to the Bullpen podcast. Our Twitter at Call to the BP. Our Instagram is Call to the Bullpen podcast. We are on Libsyn, Spotify, iTunes, and what's the other one that I'm not thinking of? Stitcher. I apologize. Stitcher is the fourth one.
Sure is.
Not a lot of Stitcher users out there, but if you're a fan of podcasts, Stitcher is a great way to listen. It's a free app. Not that I'm plugging them at all, but it is a very good app to listen to podcasts, strictly for podcasts. So let us know where you're listening, what you're thinking so far. Check out our latest full episode that came out on Tuesday, and that was a lot of football, a little bit of baseball. This is our short baseball episode, and we'll be back early next week with another recap of this week's NFL series or NFL week and MLB, ALDS, and NLDS series. So let us know what you think. Give us a shout. Send us a message, comment, post, share, as always. Jared, what do you got?
This has been Call to the Bullpen.
And we are hanging up.
Boom.